This is the Troutbitten Podcast.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
Troutbitten?
Yeah, Troutbitten.
Troutbitten.
It's about trout.
Wild trout. This is Troutbitten.
This is the Troutbitten Podcast, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Dominic Swantowski, the owner of Troutbitten and the author of Troutbitten.com. So in the last podcast, episode 7 of season 3, we talked about finding your water and finding space. And we acknowledged that everyone wants this. Everyone. I don't know any fisherman who sets out to fish beside a bunch of strangers for the day. Because part of the experience we seek is getting away from everything else in life for just a bit. No matter where you are, having some space and some water to call your own is a primary draw. So when you do find a section of river, when you're deep into the process of dissecting a riffle, run, or pool, one of the worst and most frustrating things that can happen is having another angler walk in on you. Specifically when they wade into the water you are fishing or that you plan to fish very shortly. It's no fun, and it can be maddening. It can also absolutely ruin your day. In some ways, this experience is inevitable. If you fish often enough, you're going to get front-ended, probably sooner rather than later. And how should we deal with it? Is there really any good way to open up a dialogue with someone who rudely jumps in front of you? And does that ever end well? And how much water should we expect to be granted on the river? What's the standard anyway? Also, if you round the bend on your walk-in and you see another angler set up in exactly the same water you planned to fish, where should you go? What's the acceptable distance? How much room should we give each other on the river? So that's what we're here to talk about tonight. Just like last week, this episode deals with space on the river. But this time, it's not about finding space as much as how to share space. Sometimes we're forced into sharing more than we'd like, really. Other times, there's simply no question that another angler has broken the code. And how do we deal with that? Now, this is our topic this evening. All right, so I'm joined again by the Troutbitten crew, Austin Dando, Matt Grobe, Josh Darling, and Trevor Smith. Now, sadly, Bill Dell won the poll last week, so I was going to list him first. But he's at camp and guiding for Troutbitten. So cheers, Bill. You won. You could have been listed first.
You're here.
Alas, you know.
Dom, you're just being nice.
Right.
Bill got kicked off for arguing too much on the last episode.
Right. He's too disagreeable. Anybody want to say anything negative about Bill while he's not here?
You know, stop long-arming those pictures,
Big fish
Bill.
pictures. The wide-angle lenses.
Yeah, we roasted him a little bit. Yeah.
What's he doing? 18 millimeter?
16 millimeter.
Oh, 16 millimeter lens.
Real long torsos.
Long arming is, what's a specialty, right? And it's funny because...
there's no doubt.
Right. You can get away with a little bit. But there's a very fine line, right? It's like, wow, now that was too much jammed into the camera. And then the picture right beside it can just be like 6 inches back, and it looks pretty good. Matt, can you speak to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, my thing with it is there's nothing wrong with long arming and showing off your fish, because a lot of people that get called out for long arming will say, oh, I'm just showing out the fish, showing off the fish, as you should, right? An 18-inch fish is great.
Sure.
My issue, I guess, with some of it is when you have 50 fish deep on your feed and they're all 18 to 20s that are just the same long-armed. Like, I mean, at some point, that's kind of like,
At what
I don't
point?
know. Is that just me?
What's the point?
It's just kind of like, I mean, it's just like, okay, we get the picture. Like, that one was as pretty as the 50th one. Like,
that's funny. Because people who are new to the game, let's say, and new to like posting pictures, they get some forgiveness. But for how long, Matt?
Right. And look, I'm all for it. Congratulations. Like you're on to something, but I change it up once in a while. I don't know. That's just me.
Yep. Fish pictures, man. Like I've said before, it's like, it's a whole different realm.
It's a culture.
You will get judged so often.
Yeah. Now their videos are happening though. A lot of videos on IG recently.
Mhm.
Like I
True.
feel like people are switching to that.
Mhm.
Is that just me, or do you guys see the same thing?
No, I see it.
They made a pretty big announcement a couple weeks ago. Instagram did that they were going to start really pushing video a lot more and just trying to make it more of a video platform. Obviously, we've seen that all with Reels over the last year and a half, but
sure. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we'll be able to spot burn some more. People would get sloppy with that.
Good point.
We're always watching.
That's right.
Bill Dell's watching.
Bill Dell's always watching.
Bill Dell doesn't need a video to know where you are.
No, he doesn't. That's true. He doesn't need the video. He can tell. Bill is the best. He is. Anybody listening here?
Mm-hmm.
Unreal.
You guys already understand. Bill is the best at just seeing exactly where you are. He's like, oh, that person was, it's such and such access at this bridge or whatever. Bill is so good at it.
I've only seen that cloud on this creek.
Right. I think he has a photographic memory of sorts.
Yeah.
Right? Like a fishing photographic memory. I'm not kidding.
It. Well, yeah, he's also real good at spotting like the same fish from year
trout.
to year.
Yeah.
Like, I know that spot pattern. Like, what?
Yeah, I've seen that trout before. I'm like, get out of here! And then he'll show you. I caught it before. No, he's something.
He's special.
Tonight there'll be more agreement rather than disagreement without Bill here.
That's right.
No, we miss you, Bill.
It's going to be a very, very jolly night.
Jolly. Christmas time. Hey, so we're still getting questions from listeners. That's always good. Thank you, everyone. Many of you this week, I'm going to say I answered 10 questions this week that I knew I wasn't going to include here in the podcast. We're only answering one this evening. Keep them coming, though. Keep them coming. Like I said, I'll answer you, but there can be only one sometimes on the podcast. Austin, will you read this one?
Yeah, sure thing. All right, so this one comes from Mark on the South Fork of the Snake River.
That's where he is.
All right, that's where Mark's at.
Mark's a good dude. We've been in touch before. I like Mark.
Good deal. Hi, Dom. I know you're always asking for good roundtable questions to start the podcast. As I was sitting at the fly tying desk, avoiding the skiff of snow outside my window, I wonder if you guys have secret patterns. If so, how long do they last before either the fish get wise or other people catch on? I know the fly isn't the most important thing, but sometimes a pattern does make a real difference. Thanks for all you guys do. Best wishes.
I have a secret pattern.
I thought you'd jump in on this. I like you.
I mean, I'm a believer. In a handful. I mean, I think there's and I can talk to the creator of that pattern, Mr. Owner of Troutbitten over here, but that one in particular,
the secret of secrets.
Oh yeah, that I was fortunate enough to become a part of, and I got let in on the secret from that point on. That fly out fishes
still is.
I mean, it's on my line 94% of the time from coast to coast, and it's awesome. Like,
the legend of the Troutbitten fly is going to only grow from here.
That's right.
Because I think that's probably the case for most of us. That fly is usually on our line.
Yeah.
Usually.
And it's an interesting fly in the sense that particular pattern might not be the first fly you use on a western tailwater, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't think to throw that fly. I do, and I kill it on it.
Right.
Like, there's no rhyme or reason as to why it works.
People will tell you.
On a midge factory at size 24, midges and whatnot, and I throw that on, and you'd be like, what are you using? Don't worry about it. I have to cut my line out before I pull it out of the water.
Don't worry about it. It's often a surprise here too. If I tie it on while I'm guiding, people go, really? Yeah. Just fish it. And fish it hard. So let me ask you this though, Matt. If everybody else knew about that fly, I guess this is to Mark's question, would it make a difference?
Yeah, I think it would.
Okay.
Personally, I am weird about that. I think if you are on the forefront of some newer pattern or and look, Dom, I think you taught me. I mean, you went through so many A/B testing on this pattern with the particular materials.
Yeah.
That I see a lot of different variations of it out here.
Sure.
And it just doesn't fish. Like they just don't fish. And so that was the baseline for me to start like basically thinking about that in other patterns I fish. And I'm always pushing myself to hone in that different dubbing or the different soft hackle in hopes that I find that next magic fly. And I think I've come across 2 or 3 that are staples in my box that you can't buy at a fly shop.
I love that.
Yeah. So I'm a believer that, to Mark's question, I mean, I think there are a handful of patterns that, you know, are worth keeping close to your chest, you know, or with your close-knit buddies. And I think it's fun. I mean, that's part of the fly fishing that I love is A/B testing patterns a little bit.
I think it's fun, too, to kind of keep some secrets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then it wasn't episode 1 of season 3 about secrets, and we addressed that. Secrets are kind of fun.
They're real fun.
I agree. What do you think with a special pattern like that, you know, whichever it may be, one of your few, do you think that it is a special pattern because of the generality of it, that it fits a lot of different boxes and it's like the perfect crossover pattern between different life forms under the water? Or do you think those special patterns tend to do one thing really well and that's why they're special?
It depends on the pattern for me. I wrote an article not too long ago. I call it the superfly, right? I'm always looking for the next superfly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the one we're talking about continues to be a superfly. And I'll say like the squirmy wormy used to be a great superfly around here. And then everybody started fishing it. And well, the productivity went way down. And I will say not too long ago, Grobe actually told me about...
How's that working out?
I'm showing everybody right now.
Yeah.
Grobe told me about a good variation on the squirmy wormy, and that has made a difference, you know. So, Trevor, I think sometimes, you know, it does look well. The one we're talking about, this Troutbitten superfly, is very much, in my opinion, a fly that looks like a number of things. It might be pigeonholed into just one kind of category, but it looks like a lot of things. It's a very general pattern. But the squirmy, man, it looks like a worm. And, you know, if you tie it in pink, which used to be super hot for us, that was the money fly. And then everybody else started fishing it. But that has changed over the years. But Grobe's little twist on it has made a difference for me around here. And all of a sudden it's kind of come back into my rotation as one of my go-to flies.
Yeah.
I have exactly the same experience that Dom had with the squirmy, where I was coming out here at the tail end of when it was super productive in PA. And then I came out here, Dom, and felt like I got like 2 years before it caught on mainstream. And I remember Pat coming out here and we just lit fish up. Like it wasn't even funny.
Wild trout, didn't matter. Right.
Nope. We just were smoking them. And then you started seeing it in the fly shops. A lot of people were throwing it. And that's what led me to that. And this goes back to the Troutbitten superfly. Like everybody's fishing a variation of that, but our that pattern is just killer. And is it how it's built? And so just like the worm, right? It's a worm, but you can build a worm different. You know, you can make it look different with different materials. And so I'm a believer that you can alter a standard pattern that everybody's fishing, make it look a little different, and you might have a few more fish come to net than the guy fishing downstream of you.
Yeah. Cool.
Austin.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about...
I could tell you were thinking.
The amount of pheasant tails we all have in our boxes. You know, every angler in the sport probably has a pheasant tail in its box. And how many of them look exactly the same? Probably not a lot, unless you're buying them. Yet that pattern is so effective that there definitely is a factor of generality that has to come into it. And then also just the ability to actually fish the fly matters a whole lot too.
Well, sure, yeah.
So, you know, we could hand someone our super fly and they catch nothing on it, but we know how to fish it. And that also helps a lot.
Yeah.
Big time.
True story.
Yeah, those small variations though, you know.
Yeah, my pheasant tail is the best pheasant tail.
Is that right? Can I fish it? Give it to me.
Fish it.
I'd like to fish it.
It's a clean tie.
No, because what I'm saying is those subtle variations, it could be just a little bit of sparkle here or there. Something changes about that pheasant tail or about the worm, and that makes all the difference. it doesn't have to be a big difference, but a subtle difference. Well, the fish seem to agree, right? So I'd like to fish yours, Josh. Give me your superfly.
Just gimme.
We'll see.
Just gimme.
Give it here.
Gimme. I want it.
Tell Mark to send us some of his,
That's right.
Secret.
There you go.
Mark, if you're listening, I'm waiting on a package. And
Troutbitten's open to deciding.
I'm close to you. I'm close to you, Mark. So we can
right
test some stuff out.
You close to the Snake River?
Yeah, we're not far.
Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I can get to the Henry's Fork in about an hour and 45. About 2 hours.
That's close in Montana.
Oh yeah.
2 hours is close.
Yeah. Anything, for sure.
Anyway, I think what we're saying to Mark is that, these patterns can kind of get burned out, right? But then those subtle changes. Precision Fly and Tackle is a family-owned business with a passion for the outdoors and a sense of adventure. They are anglers who enjoy every moment spent on the water with family and friends. Precision Fly and Tackle carries the widest selection of Euro rods, reels, lines, leaders, flies, and accessories. From the beginner to the advanced angler, Precision Fly and Tackle can outfit every angler, no matter the budget. Visit them online at precisionflyandtackle.com. Then use code TROUTBITTEN10, that's the number 10, for 10% off your order. Gear up with Precision Fly and Tackle for your next adventure. All right, let's get to our topic. Rude on the river, front-ended, and the golden rule. Again, one of the worst things that happens to us out there is seeing someone move into the water we were about to fish, or even worse, moving into the water we were actually fishing. Guys, what's the worst thing you've ever seen out there? What's your worst story about getting front-ended?
Who's going to go on this one? I don't even know where to start.
Right.
I'm going to do the most recent one for me.
Okay.
It was kind of a odd, I don't even know if you call it front ending, but out here, as everyone knows, there might be public access, and then when private property hits, you need to stay below the high water mark, and you can walk as far as you want, right?
Yeah.
Nobody can stop you from going anywhere. And so I was on a famous tailwater, I don't know, a couple Saturdays ago.
Yeah.
And hiked downstream a good way is to get away from people. And this river braids out, and you can keep your distance even when there's crowds.
Yeah.
And there's holes everywhere. There's no lack of holding water or whatever. It's a Saturday, I'm fishing, and 5 dudes come in on me. Okay?
5 of them.
5 of them. And they crowded me out of the hole.
That sucks.
And it's just like, I was furious, okay? Furious about the situation because you don't walk from a parking lot 25 minutes. And then out here you can see someone. So they saw me for at least, I don't know, a couple hundred yards, and they infringed on the hole. And I'm like, what do you think this hole is? Like, it's not the magic hole. Like, it's a good hole, but for crying out loud. And you know what I did? I just walked away. And then I saw they were fishing. They couldn't cast. And I should have said something, because they couldn't cast. That's the first indicator that they're probably novice anglers. And maybe they don't know, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe they don't know. And I want to table this question I have for you guys. We'll get to that, moving forward. But why did they think, like, where does that originate?
Right, where's it come
idea? From? Where does it come from? So I'll shut up and let you guys tell.
Right?
Well, in my mind, in a situation like that, especially if they seemed like they were probably novice and not very experienced, then I bet that one of them at some point had a decent time in that hole, and that's why. Yeah, like, I'm going to bring my friends back. We're going to fish this exact spot. We're going to do the same thing that I did when I was successful in this hole. That's because this was one of the only successful times that I've had fly fishing.
Good point, Josh. Good point.
Yeah.
One of the most memorable, unfortunately, experiences I've had. I was fishing a river that is only, let's say, 50 feet wide, and I was on the left side, and I'm casting, and a guy comes on the other side, and he comes like almost, directly across from me. This was over a sulfur hatch, and I was fishing risers, catching fish. And right across from me. So I just stood there and just kind of stared at him for a minute, stopped casting and stared at him. He starts casting. He's very excited. And I just yelled over to him. I just talked to him because he wasn't that far. I said, hey, what are you doing, bud? And he says something, whatever. I just wanted to fish right here. I said, but, I was kind of fishing right here. He goes, oh, you couldn't even cast over here. I'm fishing a different fish. You couldn't cast over here anyway. So I made 2 casts over there. I actually caught 1 fish on the second cast. And it made me feel good about myself.
That's fantastic.
And then I just moved on.
Nice.
And I wasn't trying to be cocky about it, but but it did make me feel good. Like, maybe I proved a point to the guy, right? I've had a lot of experiences. Come on, you guys have to have a lot of these, right? Where people front end you and you have a moment, good or bad. It's almost always bad.
I have a slightly similar one in terms of, catching a fish being involved. I just had a guy hike in right behind me and ask if we could fish the same hole, and he was like, I kind of wanted to fish this spot. Can we just fish the same one, rotate every time we catch a fish? And I'm like, do you think we're going to catch like a ton of fish out of here?
What?
Yeah, that was his question. He was like, can we
this
just
is
fish
not
the
your
same
friend.
Hole? Yeah.
Can we just be
I don't
best
know
friends?
him. I don't know him. He's like, can we just rotate? I'm like, well, I was honestly, I kind of couldn't believe it. I was feeling nice. I was like, generally, I don't respond to that kind of thing with hostility. Right. And so I was like, yeah. And so I waded like right into the juiciest spot.
Josh says, sure.
There you go.
And like, I know that like maybe I'm going to catch a couple fish out of here. And so I like wade into like how sometimes we'll work up a run and work into the best spot. Well, I didn't do that at all. I'm like, I'm going to wade right into the spot where some trout are holding so that I can cast to the spot that maybe the trout I want is holding. And so I busted up the whole run, and I made like a couple casts into that spot, caught a fish, and like sat back while he fished, and obviously nothing was there anymore.
He was playing a Jedi mind trick on Darling, and somehow Josh was tying on the magic super Troutbitten fly too.
I had the Troutbitten super fly on.
He conned you into it.
Yeah.
Jedi mind tricked them. Oh,
I had a guy pull in front of us. I was guiding, and I had a guy pull in front of us. We were parked, and honestly, I said, hey, you park on the left side. I'm going to park on the right side, and then nobody's going to park us in. And a guy came, going down the road, and he slows down. I'm thinking, like, well, just keep going. But he didn't, and he stopped, and he goes, hey, Dom.
No, jeez.
Oh, no.
No kidding.
He knew my name, and I'm like, this isn't good. This isn't good. And he's like, hey, I just really wanted to fish right here. And I'm like,
no.
It made me very uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, and I told him, well, everybody says that. So I wasn't real kind. I'm like, well, everybody says that. He goes, yeah, hey, do you mind backing up so I can pull in front of you?
No kidding.
I was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
That's a step too far.
Unreal.
It made me very uncomfortable. And I'm like, that's just a step too far. Do you mind backing up so I can basically block you in? I don't know. He said, yeah, I just really wanted, are you guys going downstream or upstream? And I'm like, well, there's not a whole lot downstream. We planned on fishing it all. And he said, I really wanted to fish upstream, so that's where I'm going to go.
Jeez.
And I went,
of course.
Okay.
Jeez.
Okay.
It's real hard to chalk that up to any goodwill. Like it's hard for ignorance to be part of that.
Right. I didn't care for it. Right.
Yeah, no. Mm-hmm. That's not cool.
So, and then he said, hey, I'm sorry to do that to you. I just really wanted to fish right there. And I said again, well, that's what everybody says.
Yeah.
And then we walked in.
That's about as nice as you could be.
I didn't care for it. And that's just way too bold. And if you want to fish right there, but if somebody is there, don't do it. Don't do that. Don't walk in on people. Just because you had your mind set on a spot that you were going to fish. Like you were saying, Josh, maybe people set up and fished in that spot before and they had success. Well, I'm sorry, but somebody's there before you this time. You need to give it up. You need to move on. You be an explorer, like we talked about in the last podcast. I'm sorry, but somebody is already there. You need to respect that space of other anglers.
Absolutely.
2 weeks ago, I was guiding, and I had 2 anglers with me.
Yeah.
And for most of the morning, I saw nobody. And eventually, we started to come around the bend, and there was a really nice hole up on the top of this bend, and I knew that was the next spot we were going to go hit. And just as that time, I looked downstream, and there was another angler. Downstream. And I saw him, and downstream of ourselves. And I saw him and kind of kept my eye on him because I know what happens. And
leapfrog.
Yeah, so I was managing the two of them. They were kind of spaced apart. And I looked back again, and this guy was way further upstream. So I knew it was happening. So I kind of nudged the one fellow along, say, hey, let's go up to this next spot. I want to get some distance between us and this guy down here.
Yeah.
And so we start to move up the bank. And this guy, he practically starts running after us.
Yeah.
And the one fella who I was with, he wasn't a very fast waiter. He was a little older gentleman. And I stood on the bank and kind of waited for him to step up and follow me. And this guy was just gaining on him and gaining on him and gaining on him. I was like, this is like ridiculous. So I just told him, hey, you get out. I'm going to go up and stand here.
Stand there, right?
Down this
without
spot.
A rod. Even.
So, yeah, without a rod.
Right.
So this guy's going to be this bold. So am I. So I kind of booked it up the stream and planted myself right in there and waited for, him to catch up to me. And just as he did, this guy, he's practically jogging, comes right behind us. And I think, he's going to say whatever and keep going way upstream out of sight. But no, he hops in right above us, fishes the run maybe 10 yards ahead of us.
Jeez.
And, slowly fishes his way across the stream, hops over to the other island, and blows up all the water.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
That's maybe what frustrates
what is that?
Me the most is when people will front end you, get in the water, and then just fish it super quick, not even efficient, and like you said, blow it all up. And you're like, well, if you're gonna front end me, at least like make something out of the water. Oh, yeah, that's the worst.
And it was another thing that added to it. Right before he disappeared out of sight, he was just across the stream. He hooked a fish and lost it. And to make sure we knew that he hooked one, he yelled in the air and then threw his rod at the water.
Oh my!
All right, bud, come on.
Yeah, it's a big event.
I think in a guiding situation, I would really say something. Like maybe on my own, maybe not. Yeah. But in a situation like that, it's like, golly, just
I don't know. I'm a little backwards in that, perhaps.
Well, let's talk about it, right? Like, how do you deal with it? I'll be honest. Now that I'm guiding, I hardly ever say anything to anyone. When I was not guiding, and still when I'm just fishing by myself, I'm more apt to say something. We touched on it earlier. All right. So a few years ago, I wrote an article on Troutbitten titled "Front-Ended. Can we stop doing this to each other?" Question mark. Yep. That was the title.
Apparently not.
And still, right? Apparently not. It's one of the most popular, one of the most shared articles on Troutbitten that I've written. Among other things, I made the point in that article that there are two types of people who will front end you on the river. And Matt, you touched on this. There's the rookie who will honestly and innocently front end you, and he doesn't understand the on-stream protocol. And then there's the guy who knows exactly what he's doing, but he doesn't give a shit. And he does it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? He knows exactly what he's doing. He's like, nah, I want to fish that water. Screw those guys.
That's the worst. Yeah.
My buddy Eric used to say, screw them. They're not me. That was like his approach to life. I'm serious. He had a different word for it. Screw them. They're not me. And like, well, me first, right? And that's just bad. That's a bad way to live. Anyway, both of those types of anglers require, a different approach. There's the innocent guy who's like, I don't know. Or maybe in his waters, it's perfectly acceptable to go 50 feet above somebody, And so he doesn't get it. Go ahead.
But those waters, so you bring up that point, right?
Go ahead.
Those waters. So let's talk about that, because I have my own theory as to those waters. Like what provokes everybody to crowd each other out in
stalking
and right.
Yeah, it's
stalking
the bait casting,
trout.
stalking world. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's opening day of trout season, lined up shoulder to shoulder. Yep.
Yeah, Trevor.
Yeah. You're 100% right, Trevor. Josh. You drive around. I remember vividly with my brother, we'd drive around on the first day of trout season in Pennsylvania just to look at people. We used to call it circling them up. There would be dudes in a circle and guarding the trout. And to me, that's where I feel like this stuff originates for people to think that it's okay to come out and hold people's hand, get close enough to where you can hold people's hands and no one's going to say anything.
I've been tripped by a 50-year-old man as a kid running from a guardrail down to a reservoir to get a spot to fish for stock trout, as a kid. they'd hold you back until 7 a.m. or something like that, and then you'd run. And it was like this. I mean, there were all sorts of poor ethics on display in those things.
Where I grew up, there was a buzzer. There was a
get out.
No,
Illinois,
like a really loud. Yeah, Missouri. Yeah, is where we fished.
Okay,
really loud buzzer that meant it's okay to start fishing now.
Wow.
Opening day. You try to get out and get in there early so that you could get your 10-foot stretch that you really wanted.
Woo.
And it didn't make a
baby.
difference, whether you were up above or below that, you were still going to catch fish.
So I did a triathlon once. And at the start of the race, triathlon. At the start of the race, running down to the water to swim, it was an all-out vicious affair with punches and elbows being thrown. No. And even in the water, people are pulling each other under and trying to climb over each other and pushing each other down. It's a complete animal display.
Oh, and, so let's not take that to fishing.
Yeah, right? But I think that's where a little bit of this, I think the bait casting in the stock trout world is where a little bit of this comes.
Yeah.
At least for the novice. Right?
Sure.
Yeah, we're touching base on the novice piece, and I think that's a good baseline for our guess as to what how did this develop in fishing. That's our Troutbitten, our best guess, and I like it.
Me too.
Since 2010, Smith Creek, New Zealand has provided innovative, high-quality angling solutions designed to free up your hands, keep your gear in easy reach, and keep our waters clean. Smith Creek's award-winning rod clip attaches to your vest and grips a variety of rod sizes, freeing up your hands to tie a fly, change a hook, or release your catch. All Smith Creek products are built guide tough, using high-quality materials like anodized marine-grade aluminum, non-corrosive fasteners, and UV-resistant nylon. To learn more about other innovative products, such as the patented net holster, spent line wrangler, or rod rack, visit smithcreek.co. That's smithcreek.co.
Tactical Fly Fisher was started in 2015 by Fly Fishing Team USA angler Devin Olson, with a mission to bring American anglers the techniques and gear that dominate the international competitive fly fishing scene. While you may have no desire to compete, you can still benefit from the same strategies which competitive anglers use to make them more successful on the water. Whether you want to buy a Euro-nymphing rod, a stillwater fly line, or just some hooks and beads to fill your fly box, we've got you covered. And our teaching materials will help you learn how to use whatever products fill up your cart. Head on over to thetacticalflyfisher.com and use the code TFF10 to get 10% off flies, fly tying supplies, or terminal tackle.
Yeah, I suppose, if you're first day focused, you're obviously going to see the most anglers, no matter where you are. If you got a buzzer in Missouri, or here, it's 7 o'clock, I think, 7 o'clock, maybe on the first day. Usually the second Saturday in April is our official start of trout season. Although we've been fishing all the regular waters, the unstocked waters all year long. No matter where you're coming from, that first weekend is going to show you a whole bunch of anglers. And maybe you do think, if you're a novice, maybe you do think, well, this is just fishing. I'm gonna have somebody 10 feet to my left and 20 feet to my right, and this is just how it is. And then maybe you decide to go fishing, a month later, and that's not how it is anymore. Maybe you're taking that over. That's when I think it is valuable to, I suppose, try to educate people who are on the water. For years, that was, I'm going to say it was kind of a mission of mine. If somebody would front end me, it would make me mad. It would make me frustrated. Yeah. And I'd try not to be frustrated, but a way to not be as frustrated was for me to just say something to the person. But I got in my share of arguments, and I went, this is dumb. I'm not trying to get in an argument, but I do want to tell the person, hey, that was not okay. That wasn't all right. I don't like what you did there, and nobody else would either. And around here, we don't do that. And so I tried to, for lack of better words, sort of educate people maybe that were from out of the area, or that were, let's say, novice fishermen who, didn't understand that this is the protocol. You are breaking a code, unwritten or not. That's not cool. We don't do that to each other. So I found different ways to say that to people and then move on. Really, I was not trying to ruin my day by getting into an argument with somebody. But I just wanted to say, as I passed, and one of the things that I would say, this is my best one, so I'll just get right to it. My grandfather used to say this. hey, can we still be friends if I ask you to give me a lot more room? Can we still be friends? Like we're friends.
I like that.
Right?
I like that too.
And that's the best one. And I would often
some
say
humor
that.
in there. And
Yep. Right. Okay, can we still be friends if I ask you to what? Like go to the next rundown or, give me a lot more space next time. And then I'm just moving on. I am not trying to get in an argument with you because it never goes well and it ruins my day and maybe the other person's. But I don't want people to think that it's okay to put in 50 feet above me because some of them don't understand,
I think that shows maturity. And I think, any of us I think we've probably, most of us at least, have been in a situation where we've gone too far in saying something. And I think it's really hard to reel that back in once you've gone down that path. And then your adrenaline response kicks in. And then whenever you do end up moving on from that situation, you just sort of fried your day, and personally, it's really hard to settle back down into any enjoyable rhythm of fishing. And you almost want to just pick up and just relocate entire streams almost, I think to that point, it's really helpful to think through this. And I hope for our listeners too, that this could be one of the more valuable aspects of listening to this podcast is to think through your own personal responses. And while it can be real fun to share stories about how you blew somebody off and really told them, I don't think that's the message that we want to convey, right?
No, it never goes well.
No, it never goes well. And honestly, it doesn't make a believer out of them, right? Like all they think is, well, this jerk came up and got in a fight and I'm going to keep doing what I do because they're a jerk.
Yeah.
But when you approach it in that mature way and kind of civilly, and I think that's, maybe I'll borrow your phrase even.
Grandfather's way.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, you borrow from that.
Do you guys have any other
good
ways of, getting the point across without getting into an argument?
Don't throw rocks.
At the head.
That doesn't work.
You throw them at their legs or at in their water. Don't throw rocks at their head. Yeah, that's how.
No lethal shots.
That's bad.
Enemies.
Yeah. I tend to not be super confrontational with stuff like that in general, but
yeah,
I have had a lot of times where somebody will front end me. Sometimes it's by 50 feet. Sometimes it's by 20 feet. Sometimes it's by 50 yards. And even 50 yards feels like, why'd you do that? I'm going to work into that in like 10 minutes, And if they're closer, a lot of the times I will walk up to them and just kind of stand behind them until they acknowledge me. And once they do, I'll just be like, hey, what's your plan? Like, are you going to keep fishing up from here? Are you planning on getting out and moving to a different spot? And sometimes that actually has initiated some kind of interaction where even they'll like apologize, like, hey, sorry, I didn't know what you were doing. I'm like,
yeah,
it's all good. Just want to get to know like what your plan is so that I can know where to fish without getting in your way. It's like,
oh, nice.
It makes me seem really nice, but really it's me trying to show them what they should have done.
Right.
That's a good
and let them know that I want space,
That is a good strategy. If there's nobody else in sight, don't jump in even 50 yards ahead of somebody, right?
Yeah.
We'll get to that, maybe the protocol and the unwritten rules. Anything else there with guys?
Well,
what do you like to say?
The last time this happened to me, I didn't say a thing. I just kind of walked upstream with the guy and I just watched him. And I walked lockstep with him the whole way and just stayed across stream.
It's like Michael Myers creepy
and and I just sort of tried to keep an impassive look on my face. And he eventually just walked out and left. And I don't know if I just disconcerted him a little bit.
It's the intimidation.
It really did seem effective.
I need to fish with Trevor more because that would be awesome.
That's a good one.
It was good.
And just stare him down. I don't say anything.
Yeah.
If they fish the same hole, if someone comes in on me and they're fishing the same run, I blow the hole up. I walk right through the guts and I wade up to my chest and blow it up and don't say a word and just leave.
Very calmly burn the house down.
They understand. Yeah. Sorry, fake snag, and just blow it up. And then I move on.
Fake snag.
So if you're fishing by me and somebody walks through the hole, it's probably me fishing. So.
I had an angler. There was really nobody else on the river, and a guy standing behind me. I was kind of middle of a pool, let's say, and sort of where the run settles down into the pool, right? And I liked it. It was going well for me. And I was catching fish. And the guy, I saw him over on the main path, and then he came and crossed the river way down below, and then he came up, and he's just standing behind me, making me again a little uncomfortable. I fished for another 5 minutes or something, trying to ignore him. And I looked back and I said, "Hey, you need something?" And he goes, "I'm just waiting to fish that spot." I look at him, I go, "Well, we don't do that around here. Like, that's not what we do. Like there's water above, there's water below. Like, we don't do that around here." And then he did move on. And nice. By the same token, here's another one. This one isn't from my grandfather, but here's something I'll say once in a while. Somebody front ends me, and it's let's say beyond unsavable. Like, you're not going to say anything to them, have them back out and whatever, still be able to fish that water. So now I'm going to relocate. But as I go up past them, I will say, like, "Hey, where are you from?" And they'll say, "Oh, I'm from New York." And I'll say, "Well, we don't get that close to other anglers around here. We give each other a lot more space." And then I'm done. I am not trying to get in an argument with you. I just want to let you know, kind of how it is around here. And it makes me feel better. It does. It makes me feel better. And then, because maybe I did educate somebody who was, let's say, innocently just front-ending me. And then even if it was just that rude guy, at least I got to say something to him. Like, "Hey, that wasn't cool."
Yeah. Right. I like.
Do you find it being as like a generational thing at all out there? Do you see any correlation in age, or is it all over the place?
It's all over the place for me when I see it.
Right. It could be any age. They'll do it to you in any way.
Interesting. Yeah.
The experience.
What about you,
is probably more of a factor.
Yeah. I mean, I think that to Josh's point right there, he hit it on the head. And that's why I'm somewhat, maybe I'll be hesitant in blowing up the dude's hole, because I can totally tell by the way they're casting where they're at in the game, right? And
if they're doing it innocently or on purpose.
Right. And maybe it's worth just saying, "Hey, man, we don't do that around here. I like that, Dom. Like, that's not how we do things in Montana or Pennsylvania. Yeah. Like, it's just not how we roll." And so maybe that guy gets the benefit of the doubt. But if you have this guy that can cast and, is all decked out in his fishing gear, and we really haven't hit on this guy, right? What's his deal? Like, what is that guy's deal? What is he trying to prove?
Oh, he doesn't care about you. That's his deal, right. Is he doesn't care about you. He thinks, well, I hate to say it, but he thinks he's better than you. And he's just going to, this is where I want to fish, so screw that guy. He probably thinks you're the rookie. And he's like, well, I'm going to fish here, and I'm going to fish above him. I'm going to do whatever I want. That's not very nice.
No,
no.
Matt, you brought up like the whole, like, that's not how we do this things around here might even be more useful on somebody who's a little bit more experienced. Because if you have somebody who is newer to this, then you've got this opportunity to give them a good experience with it, knowing that you have countless hours on the water and you're going to be on the water a lot more than they are. You've got this opportunity to say, like, I can teach them something, but I can also make this a good experience for them so that they don't think that this whole fly fishing thing is this, elitist thing of snobs,
Right.
And so you can kind of help them, If their casting looks rough, we can spot that immediately, right? We can see, like, this guy knows what he's doing, or this guy is new. I can help this be a good experience for him and let him have this hole, because it's not that important to me right now, because I'll be out tomorrow,
Sure. I love that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do you guys think that overcrowding there's any justification that if you go to a stretch that's overcrowded and it's 6 o'clock, bugs are about to fall, and you've driven all over the place and every pullout's loaded, like, is there any situation where there's a justification to high-holing individuals?
Well, that gets to the point of what's high-holing. Is it 50 feet? Is it 50 yards? Is it 500 yards?
Good question. Yeah, good.
Right?
What is it?
Yeah,
you want to break that down?
Is it to the situation? Yeah.
Relative is the key word. I mean,
50 feet during the green drake hatch might be accurate.
Right around here, right on one of our favorite streams, you're going to have 10, maybe 20 times the anglers as you did the week before. And so you have to just put up with more people out there, and how that space required to give another angler changes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you should be able to give, they should be able to give.
50 feet was a stretch. Yeah.
50 feet's crazy.
I mean, you should
never get within 50 feet.
Like in the spinner fall, from my experience there, it was
right.
Whatever. If there's a guy up in the hole above me and it's 7:45 and we're all there for one reason. You're gonna get your dozen fish in your hole, and I'm there to catch those 12 fish. Like, that's okay. I get that. Like, you slid in above me. We're here for a reason. But if you, like, at 2:00, there's no dry fly activity and you're nymphing and you high hole somebody that's working a run, right? Like, to me, that's a little bit less acceptable than at the end of the night.
Right on. I always break the river down into what I call levels. And that level break is where you could walk upstream in the next level and not disrupt the fish that I'm fishing to. And that level, it's very stream dependent, river dependent. That level could be 100 yards. And sometimes it could be, like 50 feet. Sometimes you have level break after level break after level break. And it's really where the river goes over a hump, or, it kind of breaks, usually creates some white water, and then boom, down into the next level. So in my opinion, there is never any good reason to jump into somebody's level. I don't care how crowded the stream is. I will not jump into somebody's level. Now, again, if you have levels that are just 100 feet long, then okay, if the stream is really crowded, like we acknowledged, then sometimes I have to get, I hardly ever fished like this with that many people, but if I am, then I'm going to have to go, wow, there's a guy there, there's a guy there, there's a guy there. So I'm going to have to get within 100 feet of this guy, but at least I'm not going to jump in his level. That's all his.
I like that too.
Where I'm going to go is where I'm not going to disrupt his fish downstream of me.
Right on.
Every stream has those natural level breaks. I'm not saying you always have to do that, but obviously some rivers are big and they have very long levels. And people will space themselves out. Personally, and I think we were talking about this in the last podcast, I'd much rather go places where I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
My golden rule is I'm going to give every angler the space that I would want, and then like twice that. And I'm not kidding. Basically, I go out of sight. I said last week that I'm not, most days when I'm out on the river, I'm not seeing anybody, because I kind of do know, just like you guys, I often know where to go, and I'm probably not going to see anybody because of parking strategies and all the things we talked about last week. And when I do see somebody, I go, all right, hey, I'm going to go out of sight, way, way out and around, because that's what I would like that angler to do for me.
Yeah.
And I will seriously do that for that person. You got to respect that space. They're there for the same reason that you are. Let's assume that, right? So don't crowd them. There's no good reason to crowd them.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I think there's a second portion to that thought. I like to do the walk way out around so they don't see me. Mm-hmm. So I don't have to break their moment or their experience.
Yeah.
The other reason I like them not to see me is so they also just don't know I'm there.
Okay.
Because when people know that you're upstream of them, they have the tendency to start fishing faster and think, oh, now I got to get ahead of him.
Right. Then it becomes a game and jumping.
Yeah, and I don't want that urgency put in anybody.
Right.
Right.
So go way out around. That helps everybody in that case.
And to your levels point, Dom, in most cases on our rivers, specifically with the size that we're of rivers that we're fishing, 2 levels is usually out of sight by a good bit.
Good point.
Sometimes
around
one.
Around a bend. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. To where even if they do run into you, like it's like, well, he wasn't high-holing me. He was just fishing, a bit above the, higher up on the river than I was.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll even if I think I've gone far enough, before I get in the water, I get downstream. Let's say it's a long straightaway.
Yeah.
If I can get down there and still see that person, or if I get down there and I think I've walked further than I actually have, I'll always look back downstream and see where they're at, or, pick a landmark as to where they're close to or something and say, ooh, that's not as far as I thought. I should keep going.
Sure. Right. Don't
hesitate to get back out and keep going.
Just give them more room, because that's what you would want, take what you would like and then double it.
Yeah.
Other people have said that. I like that. I consider that the golden rule.
Now, real briefly, I know this probably affects you, Grove, a little bit more than it does us, but to what extent does this play into a drifting angler in respect to a wading angler?
Ooh,
do you guys have the same expectation in terms of Like, where do they pull their line out of the water? Because I would say that most of my experiences around these parts with drifting anglers violate what I would consider a tactful halo of distance in regards to their fishing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll chime in out here. I mean, I think people are pretty respectable from what I've seen out here. I mean, it's a standard that you pick up your rod and you pick up your line when you approach a weight angler and you don't fish. I mean, it's you give them a good, 20 yards up, 20 yards down, at least, right, before you pick up and start fishing again. That's kind of a unwritten rule. So, yeah, I mean, that's at least out here. And then even guys wait, if you're fishing a hole where you got one spot for that boat to go, it's very uncommon not to hear the rower say, "Hey, sorry," or acknowledge exactly what he's doing. And that's great. Like, acknowledge it. Like, I get it, man. You can't go anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But if you come, slapping your oars down and you got guys casting out on both sides of the boat, well, man, that's not cool.
I had something happen to me on Friday where I was fishing with a buddy, and he was upstream of me in this beautiful run. Yeah. And these kayakers came downstream unexpectedly. And, you kind of always wait to see what they're going to do, right? Are they going to try to go around them, or are they just going to go right through the easy spot? And they went right through the easy spot.
Sure they did. Yeah.
So I figured they're going to do the same thing to me. So I just kind of pinned myself up against the far bank as I could to make it very inconvenient. Yeah. And they kind of changed their course pretty drastically to get around us. And I said, "Hey, thanks." They said, "Yeah, we're trying our best." So I thought, all right, maybe they were. Maybe they weren't.
Yeah. The non-anglers kind of present a whole different scenario. We were on one of our popular streams. Joey, my oldest son at the time, I'm going to say he was 9 or 10 years old, and he was just kind of breaking into that little bit of independent fishing, but he's still pretty much right beside me. And like you said, Austin, I saw these kayakers coming, and it was getting to be lower flows too, toward the summer. And I'm like, that's where all the fish are. And I kind of pinned myself, almost like you said, very close to the bank. There was 15 feet between me, Joey, and the bank. And the kayaker still went. Actually, his buddy went out and around. His buddy went out and he kind of scraped, and then he even got out of his kayak and went around. I was like, that's
totally fine.
Right. And then this second guy just blows right through us. 15 feet. So he's like 7 feet away from me when he goes past. Jeez. And I'm like, what are you doing? I was like, this kid's like 9 years old, and you're plowing right through his water. And he goes, "Hey, what else could I do?" I go, "You could do what your friend did," and that was it.
Yeah, there you go.
And whatever. That's kind of a different thing. We're not going to speak to those people here on this podcast, right? Nobody's listening. None of the kayakers, right? That's a different.
But
world.
It's a thing. I mean, that's sharing the water with other recreationists. I mean, that's a thing out here too. And
Sure.
Yeah, can still happen with rafts or drift boats.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure.
And I will say, I mean, you got to have some forgiveness there. There's lots of people in kayaks who maybe it's their first or second time. They don't have control over their kayaks, and they don't really know what they're doing. They don't understand any of that protocol.
That's why I wanted to thank them, so they'd know that, this angler is thankful that I did this. I'll do it the next time I run into this situation.
I'm seriously all about like sharing the water. That's great. We're talking here like. I remember this when I was 12 years old, back in Western PA, fishing mostly stocked streams. And so people were out for the meat, right? And people would front end you. And I remember, maybe like even at 12 years old, saying something to somebody. And the guy's like, "Well, you don't own the river." That's what it always comes down to, right? Don't they always say that? That's probably the first time I ever had somebody say that to me. Somebody told me, "Well, you don't own the river." And I remember thinking like, well, I didn't think that I owned the river. I was just thinking that wasn't very nice.
It wasn't my argument.
Right. That's not my argument. And that's what it comes down to. People want to tell you that you don't own the river. And I just want to be real clear here. In this podcast, as in this discussion, none of us are saying that we own this piece of water or this should just be ours and not yours. No. The point is we were here, and you need to respect that space. We all need to respect that space. And if, Trevor, you're upstream and I don't know you, but let's say you're 100 yards up. When I go around a bend and I see that you're there, I'm going to go, dang, that guy got there before me. Fair enough. I'm going to go below him probably, way below him, like Austin said, out of sight. And I have to rearrange my plans because Trevor was there first.
Sure.
Yeah, I have long legs.
Do you guys feel like it's safe to say that we're basically speaking on behalf of wild trout waters in general, like that this is kind of the expectation or the proper etiquette when you're fishing a wild trout stream? This is what should be abided by out there, because there are situations, Dom, you just pointed it out, Western PA, stocked waters, where maybe it's a little harder to abide by these rules.
Yeah.
And I can think of it in a completely different, it's fishing, but think of the Erie steelhead tribs.
Oh my, yes.
Oh my, yeah.
Different
but
rules.
I'm saying if you're coming from there and you show up to a Central PA limestoner, would you know any different after what you witness up there? So it's very, convoluted when you're fishing different things, and then you go to these other waters and there's a different set of rules. But it should be, these rules should be listened to and they should be abided by, because it'll just enhance the experience for everybody, that comes to appreciate them.
I think that's a great point, Grobe. And I think there is some relativity to whether you're talking about fly fishing wild trout streams, or you're fishing stocked waterways, or you're fishing Erie steelhead, or you're fishing Lake Run brown trout up in New York, or, whatever you choose. I do think that there's some relativity to the concepts that we're talking about. But the important thing is to learn the concepts related to the sport that you want to engage in, and try your best to treat others like that golden rule. Treat others the way you want to be treated on that water. And if you're new to that water and to that sport, maybe go to your local fly shop and ask some questions about, hey, what's the standard around here? What do you think is a good etiquette in this regard? And hopefully they can teach you that. I know maybe not in all cases, but
that's a pretty cool idea though, Trevor. How many people you think actually ask a fly shop employee that ever? Like, how much
they're too busy asking for the best fly.
Right. But
no one ever asked.
Nobody, right? Austin, you worked how many years?
3, I guess.
Right. And nobody ever asked you that, right? But that would be a fantastic question to ask, because like Matt said, there are so many different scenarios. Anyway, if nothing else, just look around. Are people, going, 100 feet in front of each other, or is there nobody in sight? Well, okay, then I'm gonna go up and around the bend and give this guy some space. There's really no excuse for it,
I thought this was pretty neat. Orvis recently came out with the video. Tom Rosenbauer
saw that.
Gave the explanation of fishing etiquette, and he gave an entertaining example of what not to do versus what to do. Yeah, and it was pretty cool to see that come out.
I know, I like that.
Just because it's kind of the first time I've seen effort put into that sort of education.
Right, and Tom's strategy was to say, hey, are you fishing upstream or downstream? Which way would you like me to go? And how much space would you like to have? I mean, what's wrong with asking that?
Yeah,
if there's nobody else out there, or if there's 3 people out there, whatever, ask the guy that you're about the front end. Hey, how much room would you like to have? That's fantastic. How's that going to hurt anything?
Sometimes I wish we had a system of like, let's say you pull into the lot and there's one car there, and that guy or girl could have easily gone downstream or upstream, but you don't know which way they went.
Yeah.
Like if you just had a note on your windshield saying, hey, I went down.
People do
something.
That. Yeah.
Well, I've never run into it, but I wish I had.
I have. We said last week how if you really want to find your space, you go to a headwaters stream, a tributary, right? And I had a guy, I actually got back after fishing, and a guy left. He was parked fairly close to me, and I saw, seriously, like you said, a note on his windshield that said, I went downstream. I assume he left that for me. I've seen it one other time, maybe 2 other times. Just went downstream, went upstream. Nothing wrong with that, That's all right.
No, not at all.
You signal your intentions.
That. Yeah.
It's good for everybody.
More communication and more positive communication.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody said about angler ethics or etiquette. And when I think about this, I was actually thinking about maybe this podcast topic would be ethics or angler etiquette. Doesn't it always come down to this, though? Isn't this it? I mean, really, we talked about rudeness on the river, or space, or front ending. I mean, that's our topic. Because doesn't ethics and etiquette always kind of come down to this? What else is there? Am I missing something?
No, you're right. I mean, it's
spot
respect, ethics. I mean,
right.
Come on, we're all out there to share a resource, right?
Yeah.
And we want to promote, a good time for everybody, right? To be had, and so don't be that guy.
Yeah, it does come down, I think, to just space and respecting that space out there. Other people's experience, respect their experience, respect their space. Of course, you want to treat the trout right, and we've addressed that a lot in the How to Handle a Trout in the first season. And that's ethics. Is there another part of angler ethics, or does it always come back to this?
I don't know why in my mind I've always considered ethics to be kind of how we treat the resource and etiquette to be how we treat each other. But
nice, cool.
Yeah,
tell us more about that.
I think it's good, Josh.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of said it. We talked a lot about how we handle like releasing fish, fighting fish quickly, and all that. That's in my mind that the connection is faster to get to ethics there, and I'm sure that we'll have a lot more discussions on things like that in the future. And then, but with etiquette, I really do think kind of what you're saying is correct. It sort of always comes back to, are we going to give each other the space and the ability to enjoy the resource?
That's a great distinction, though. I like that. Anything else, guys?
Yeah. So all this talk about the ethics, right? Like, we're always shocked when somebody, does an unethical thing when you're fishing a wild trout stream and you get front-ended. And there was a time where, I think it was early 2000, I was out on the San Juan River in New Mexico, and my brother used to live in Durango. A phenomenal fishery, right? And they have names for all the holes. So there's the kiddie pool and the Texas hole, and there's all these funny names. So we're booting up in a parking lot, and it was the first time I had ever been there. And you could, I guess, on my face, it was excitement of a early 20s kid with my cowboy hat on, and I'm fishing out west for the first time.
Heck yeah!
And there's this old timer taking his boots off, and the parking lot, mind you, is just packed, right? And I come walking past this dude, and I'll never forget this. And he looks at me, and he says, "Welcome to the ass hole." And I'm like, what the? Welcome.
Because it has a clever
asshole.
name.
I thought this was the kiddie pool, and I go out into the water, and I got front-ended all day long.
Wow.
And I think back to that guy, and he warned me.
Yeah.
I was fishing the asshole, and it was acceptable for everybody to be assholes out there and walk around each other. So if you ever want to go to the land of the high hole, hit the San Juan River up in New Mexico at peak season.
You have the worst place to go. Yeah.
I thought it was funny, though, because I remember just being like, what is this place? And then thinking back to that old timer, and he warned me.
Oh, I'm never going there.
That sounds terrible.
It does sound terrible. Not my spot. No, thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully a bunch of the San Juan guys don't make their way to Central PA.
Right. Because they'll have different expectations. But if they're right, but like we said, if they're open-minded, they'll look around and say, well, people aren't doing that to each other. I'm not going to do that.
Here.
Right, round here. I'm not going to do that. Any other quick tips for, how to deal with front-enders, guys? You got any things like my grandfather had?
One last thought. If I do get front-ended, and let's say I at least have another level, or at least have my full level.
Yeah.
I take my time, because on days like that, I maximize the water that I have.
Sure.
If there's another angler in front of me, chances are decent there probably won't be another one that gets in between me and them. And I'm going to fish all the water I have until I either meet that person or overlap my water with theirs, and then get out and walk around.
Yeah, because I have found myself trying to do the leapfrog game where I'm going to get in front of that guy, and then he's going to get in front of me, and then I'm going to get in front of that guy, and then he's going to get in front of me. That's no fun. Nobody's actually fishing anything. You're just trying to one-up the next guy. That's a stupid game, and you're not fishing. That's a cool thing, Austin. I mean, Oh, we've talked so often about changing your tactics, possibly changing your flies, trying to really maximize the water in front of you. That's a good game too. And our buddy Bill isn't here, and Bill probably wouldn't like that because he likes to fish so fast. So Bill probably, it's too bad he's not here because Bill probably has some great stories about getting front-ended because Bill's constantly running into other anglers because he fishes so much faster than everybody else. But yeah, trying to make the most of what's in front of you instead of always looking for the grass is greener on the other side of that guy. That's cool. Austin, you have a story? You want to tell a Bill story since he isn't here?
So Bill went fishing, I think maybe after work, and it was going to be a short trip.
Yeah.
And he got to this small little brook trout stream near his home.
Yeah.
Where normally he sees no one. And just by chance, he's putting on his boots and another car pulls in. And I think Bill, the way he explained it was that he first tried to be courteous and tell them where he was going.
Yeah.
And a couple anglers got out of the car and then agreed that they're also going to the same spot. And they said something like along the lines of, "Oh, we'll go down ahead of you. We'll just get ahead of you." And Bill goes, "No, that's called being a dick." And he says it right to his face, because Bill doesn't care.
No.
And he said basically they were stunned and didn't bother him.
And then he told them what they should do, which is don't go in front end me. How about you go downstream, I'll go upstream or whatever. No, that's called being a dick. I remember that story. That's a good one.
He told him, "We'll just get right ahead of you." And Bill's like, "No, you're not."
That's not how it goes.
Don't do that around here.
Who is this guy?
All right, there it is. Thanks to my Troutbitten friends for another great conversation. So, conflict on the river is the last thing that anyone wants out there. We go fishing to get away from things, to have a little space, and to just sink into nature for a while. And arguments about river space never turn out well. It's a big world out there, and there's enough water for everyone. But inevitably, we do fish around other anglers. Sometimes that's enjoyable too, but not when another fisherman works into your water. Is it really your water? Of course not. But if you were there first, then respect for another's space should be granted. The tricky thing is knowing how much space to give another angler, because as we've said here, there are many factors to consider. But if you look around a bit, if you keep an open mind in a new area and honestly try to feel things out, the answers are pretty obvious. If there's just one angler in sight, then give him the courtesy of going around the next bend. Give him space. Remember the golden rule, and even while fishing a crowded stream, never set up in the same level. Never wade into the water that another angler is working. Respect their space. And as far as handling infringements on these unwritten rules or the code of conduct, the simplest thing may just be to walk away. But it may also be helpful to share some local expectations and pass down that code. Sometimes. All right, thanks again to everyone here, to our show sponsors, and to you, the listeners out there. Trevor, will you read us out?
Remember, Troutbitten.com is a free resource for all anglers. With over 800 articles, there are stories, commentaries, tactics, tips, and more. Find what you like through the top menu and through the search page. Navigate by way of the categories and tags, too. Thank you for listening to the Troutbitten podcast. Please give the show a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and leave a comment, because that really helps. Until next time, friends, fish hard, enjoy the day, and find your life on the water.
I am weird.
He's special.
What are you using? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Just fish it. Look at the guns on Young Love. Everybody, real quick. Look at the guns.
A lot of sinew.
It's been winter, so you haven't seen my arms a while. You're going to get used to it again.
He does that once a podcast just to check to see if we're looking.
He must high stick for a living.
He must high stick.
This is what I do. Man, it looks like a worm.